I'm really excited to be back in the studio and to connect with a lady called Jacqui Macdonald. Jacqui and I met through very strange circumstances, which we're going to talk about in the interview. And we also talk about metamorphosis.
Called the magical third phase of your life because it's an invitation, right? There's a doorway there, and you can choose to step through it and you can choose to make it the most magical time in your life. Or you can say, well, this is kind of rubbish. I feel a bit invisible now, and this is everything that I thought or feared menopause would be. So it's the first gift is about choosing how you want to feel and how you want to experience the third magical third phase of your life to be.
Come and join us. Well, I'm really excited to be joined today by Jacqui Macdonald. Hi, Jacqui.
Hello, Ali. How are you today?
I'm good, and I'm extra excited because I was just teasing Jacqui. I was a bit of a stalker because because I read her first book, The Art of Being, from a library app. So I then tried to get copies of the book to share with some friends because I loved it so much. And it was Jackie's website was no longer available, and I couldn't find her on Google or anywhere. And I eventually I tracked you down on LinkedIn, didn't I?
You did very well. You were a brilliant stalker. I was extremely impressed, and I was absolutely delighted. You were my first and only stalker, and yeah.
So I really did love that book, and I'm really excited with the second book. So before we launch into talking about your second book, do please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Jacqui Macdonald. I am a writer and a speaker, and I do various pieces of consultancy work. My great passion is nature and the environment, so I do some corporate work around that. But also, for years, I have been working as a mindfulness teacher and meditation teacher. And I love helping women kind of find that real essence of who they are and connecting to a greater power and helping them understand how that can really direct their life. And then I went through, well, I'm still going through, I'm in perimenopause, so I'm not
Okay.
through menopause yet by any means. And I was really quite shocked by what was happening to me, and actually didn't realize to start with that it probably was menopause related. And then when I started putting the pieces together, and I thought, we need to be talking about this more. We need to be talking more about this topic. And listen, I know that we've come a long way, even in the last 10, even in the last 5 years, in terms of
Yeah.
talking around menopause and how that affects women's bodies. We're talking a lot about, and there's a lot more clinical research that's going into supporting women. And I think the medical profession is now finally getting up to scratch in terms of supporting women with what's happening with their bodies. But I still don't think we're having enough conversations about what's happening to us, um, energetically, spiritually, mentally, in our minds, emotionally, because there is a big shift occurring there. So really, I started. I'd been wanting to write another book for quite some time, but there was nothing that wanted to come forward. And then I just very naturally started writing about my experience and what I was going through and what I was doing to help me navigate this really interesting and actually really empowering and magical time in a woman's life, but it can also be really, really tough. So yeah, I started exploring this by writing it, and ended up writing another short but very sweet book, all about the magic of menopause.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think a lot of us, when we do start going through the perimenopause, we don't realize at all that's what it is because nowadays we feel so young, don't we? We don't,
Yes.
and that was something that happened to my mum when she was old, not us when we're young. So a lot of people, a lot of women that I know get symptoms, um, and don't ever put it down to menopause. One of my best friends thought she had a brain tumor because she just couldn't figure
Gosh.
out why, what all this brain fog was, and she didn't realize it was brain fog.
Yeah.
So I think even if we have come a long way in 5 to 10 years, but I think there's still a lot to do for us to educate each other as to what it is. So you mentioned there briefly what inspired you to write Seven Hidden Treasures to Unlock the Menopause. Was there a specific defining moment in your own journey that you thought, I've got to write a book about this?
Yeah, so there was a defining moment in terms of my realization that actually this I am experiencing menopause symptoms, and it had been quite gradual. And I'd been working in a corporate job. I'd been head of sustainability for a pharmaceutical company, which was a job that I absolutely loved, and I was really passionate about it. And I started to notice that passion waning a little bit. But I just thought maybe I'm experiencing a bit of burnout, which might have been the case as well. But then other things as well. And really when the short-term memory starts going, and I didn't realize, I just start to think, God, I used to be so good at my job, and now I'm absolutely rubbish at my job. And I would join meetings, and I wouldn't be able to remember what had been discussed in the meeting before unless I took a load of notes, and I would have to be constantly checking notes to see what had been discussed and what had been agreed. And a lot of the time I just couldn't remember. And to the point that it was sort of quite embarrassing. And also, when you're working with a young team and, everybody's really dynamic and everyone's on it, and you just start to, it's kind of a little bit cringy when you're just, you're forgetting this stuff. So that was all happening, and then actually it got to the point where I left that job because I just wasn't able to perform the
Okay.
way I had been. And so that I had took a massive hit in my confidence as well. I'd always been somebody who was, quite confident and able to hold my own in most situations, and suddenly found myself feeling really unconfident. And then, but again, I didn't really attribute it to menopause. I just thought, oh, maybe I'm just not as good as my job anymore. And then I just there was the kind of not caring about work, but the not caring about work started seeping into not caring about lots and lots of different things. And I was out on a walk. I live down in the New Forest in England, which is beautiful. And we've got some stunning places to go for a walk. And I've got a lovely dog. And I was out walking my dog, and she ran off, and she'd been gone for quite some time. I was with my fiance at the time, and I said, well, she doesn't come back, whatever, who cares? And he said, what are you talking about? You love your dog. And I said, "What? Well, and he said that's really not like you." And that's when I thought that is quite strange. And so I went to see the doctor, and I was really lucky. I saw this brilliant doctor, and she said, "It absolutely everything that you're describing sounds like a crash in estrogen, and a lot of these symptoms." So I call it emotional flatlining, when you just don't really care about anything. And it was interesting. I was talking to a lady this morning who had a similar thing. She said, I got to the stage where I didn't care about my kids. I didn't care about my dog. I didn't care about my husband. And she said, I was so close to just saying, I'm leaving. I'm going off. I'm starting a new life because I can't. And she said, thank goodness I didn't. And then again, she went and got some support and some HRT, and got herself back in balance. But that to me was really shocking. That was a really shocking experience, going through
Yeah.
that, and kind of realizing that um I had really shut off emotionally from so much stuff. So not only did I then seek some medical help, I thought I really want to write about it, and I really want to share my story with other women, because I'm sure other women are going through this. And actually, the more I have spoken about it, the more I've realized that actually these things are quite common, and women are going through these things, and either attribute it to burnout, or or perhaps think they're experiencing some kind of depression. But very often it is related to hormones. And when that estrogen crashes, these are quite common things that we're feeling. So I just felt really inspired to talk about it and share my story. And hopefully, if other people can relate to it and think, oh my goodness, that's exactly how I'm feeling, and I thought it was something else, but going to get the support that they need to help them feel better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you highlighted a key point at the very beginning of what you'd said, which was that you got a really good doctor, because I think that is the issue, isn't it? Not everybody has access to a really good doctor who understands what menopause is, or what somebody could be going through at that specific time.
I think it's a really big issue, and I was so lucky. And my doctor is female, but she's relatively young. She's early 30s, so she hasn't experienced menopause yet. But she said when she was reading up about it, when she was training, she couldn't believe the lack of, proper clinical data and clinical support and evidence for supporting women. So it's something that she became extremely passionate about and started studying more and more. So I was so lucky
Yeah.
that I met her, but I've met so many people that have gone to their doctors and haven't had the right support or have been put on antidepressants or and even things like sleep can be a real challenge during menopause. And um, instead of doctors kind of putting the pieces together, like putting women on sleeping tablets or again even antidepressants, which can there's longer term problems with sleeping tablets and antidepressants. You can feel a bit groggy and zoned out, and actually sometimes what they need is a little bit of help with getting that hormonal balance right. And look, I'm not here to tell anybody whether they should or shouldn't take HRT. The physical medical side of it is not my area of expertise at all. But I think that women should have the choice. And I can only say from my personal experience that HRT has been an absolute game changer. It's really brought me back to myself and restored that sense of self and that sense of confidence. And then what that's enabled me to do is then to tap into some of the really cool stuff about menopause that I think you can't really do unless you're physically well. So for me, that's one of the first steps, is to really start connecting with your body and understanding, what's going on with your thoughts and your mind and your thinking and your body, and start to acknowledge if your body does need a little bit more support. And as I say, it's up to every individual woman whether she wants to take HRT or not. And there are some other natural supplements and natural routes to go down. But I think probably for most women, the body does need some extra support. And then I hear women saying, well, women have been older women sometimes, women have been going through menopause for years and we were all fine and we got through it. And you lot are all making quite a fuss about it. But I do also think there's something in where we are, where this generation of women is, where our diet is different, very different from
Yeah.
women, say 20, 30 years ago. There's way more processed stuff in our diet. There's way more sugar. There's much less nutrition in the soil naturally. So our bodies aren't being as nourished as the bodies of women were, say 20 years ago. Not to mention all the other stuff that's going on, even things like social media and all the stuff. So it's different. I don't think it's fair to say, well, we got through it and we didn't make a fuss out of it. And also I think, back in the day, if women did speak up, it was potentially quite dangerous for them. They could be ostracized or, I'm going back 100 years, not 10 years, but
Yeah.
very often we hear and we watch programs or read historical fiction. You hear about women becoming hysterical of a certain age, and they were sent off to sanitariums or whatever. So thank goodness we're not there. We've moved on a long way. But as I say, I think for our generation of women, no other generation of women have gone through the menopause, given all the external circumstances that we are experiencing in our
Yeah.
lives in terms of diet and other environmental factors as well.
Yeah, and I think we do put a lot more demands on our body and our minds than we ever used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So without giving away too much, can you share one or two of the hidden treasures that women can unlock during menopause?
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to do that, and I'm really happy to give away it all, to be honest, because I just want to share it and tell everyone. And look, we've already touched on it to some extent. The first step for me is acknowledging really and noticing what's going on in your body, and actually empowering yourself to say, I want to I want to feel better, and committing and being quite intentional around feeling better, and how you're going to experience what I call the magical third phase of your life, because it's an invitation, right? There's a doorway there, and you can choose to step through it, and you can choose to make it the most magical time in your life. Or you can say, well, this is kind of rubbish. I feel a bit invisible now, and this is everything that I thought or feared menopause would be. So it's the first gift is about choosing how you want to feel and how you want to experience the third magical third phase of your life to be. And then I think it's about, and the wonderful thing about menopause, I think, and I've talked about the kind of the not caring, and I've really pondered about that. I'm like, what's the physiological purpose of that? But I feel like Mother Nature does shut off um, all these other aspects that we traditionally cared about. I mean, we've gone through our whole life. The three traditional phases of women are maiden, mother, crone. The maiden's there just kind of wide-eyed and finding herself. And then we step into the motherhood phase, and that we might be mothers to children, but we might be mothers to our businesses. But that phase of our life is often about giving elsewhere, and giving to somebody else. And then this sort of not caring bit, I think, is an invitation to go, okay, so finally it's about me. It's about what do I want. So the second treasure, I believe, is about really connecting with yourself and going internally, listening to your body, supporting how what your body needs, and also listening to your mind, and thinking about, really thinking about, you know, how you want to be and how you want to step forward into this next phase of your life. And then we move into things like some of the traditional mindfulness techniques that were in my first book that I wrote about, but I think they're really important as well. It's about really pausing and connecting, and noticing the world around us. And that's when you start to kind of feel into the sort of quantum realm and the energetics of the quantum realm. I mean, that can be quite a magical experience as well. And then we go through and we develop. And I also think, last one I'll speak about, I think there's an invitation to reconnect with our feminine frequency, which I think for a lot of us, and as you said, because we put demands on ourselves, and because we're really busy with work and our schedules and doing this, and we want to achieve that, which is all great, but there's quite a lot of masculine energy associated with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with achieving and pushing, unless it's out of balance. So I think there's an invitation there to rebalance with the feminine energy, to slow down, to learn to receive more, and just kind of feel into the beauty of being a woman and what that feels like. And I think for a lot of women as well, there's an elevated sense, once you get through all the rubbish bits, there is an elevated sense of sensuality and sexuality that can open up a whole different realm for women and help them discover and enjoy, parts of themselves, which in turn leads to improved confidence and improved knowing of self. And then I think that's where that kind of inner wisdom, and you quite often hear people talking about menopause being the wise woman era, and it's that sort of inner knowing that comes from that feminine frequency, and just the slowing down, and feeling into all of that. And I think that's when things can start to become really magical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you emphasize in the book about women in menopause stepping into leadership roles, creating businesses and sharing communities. Shaping communities, which I love, because I think we do shape communities. And you've got that beautiful metamorphosis role model, which as someone that helps your powerful transformation. So how did that help you in your transformation, and why?
Well, to be honest, I think I'm sort of still in that metamorphosis phase, and going through that transformation. And I'm still at the stage where I am still recovering some of my confidence and some of those elements that I thought I lost. I'm kind of I'm still on that journey, but I think there are some fantastic role models of women who, in this later stage of life, are just deciding that they're going to do things on their terms and and really doing what they want to do. I think Carol Vorderman is a great example of somebody. I mean, she's wonderful and had a brilliant career, but she's really speaking out now and really speaking up against things that she thinks aren't right in society, and if there is something that's unjust, she'll really call it out, and she's really got this kind of activism, and she looks absolutely sensational while she's doing it, and and that's fine, and that's her choice, and some people will criticize that. And then you've also got women like Pamela Anderson, who I think is also, if you look at her career, and she was so modeled by the industry and what they wanted the perfect woman to be, and she played along with it for such a long time. And then I think she's a great example of a woman that's going through or gone through a metamorphosis, and she's like, no, I'm doing this on my own terms now, and I'm defining beauty in my own way. And again, she'll get criticized for that, and that's the thing, you can't really win. But it's very empowering when you realize that actually none of that matters, and it's what you want and what makes you happy. And then I think that's what enables women to step forward more in these leadership roles, or in the community, to be doing more, and to be holding space for other women to empower themselves. And I think it's just such a magical time of life, and I think we're only really starting to learn how to get the juice out of it.
Yeah. So you very bravely shared about having lost your confidence, and you're talking about women that are now appearing to be very confident in what they're sharing and how their identity. Would you have any specific tips or advice for women who feel that menopause has actually stripped them of that confidence and their sense of identity?
Well, I think the first thing that I'd say is that that's completely normal. Um, it maybe doesn't happen to every woman, but it happens to a lot of women. And if you are feeling that, then you're not going mad, and you're not alone. And this is a very common experience for women to go through. I mean, we talked about the brain fog and the memory loss. So, I think many women also think that it might be early onset dementia, or those sorts of things. But yeah, I think that the confidence crash is very real. And I speak to women online as well, and just really random things in terms of the anxiety that they suddenly start feeling that they never had before. Even
Yeah.
things like being worried about driving, and so a lot of these things can come in. They're really common. Um, Go and see your doctor. Hopefully you'll get some really good support, and ask specifically at your GP if you can speak to somebody who is really knowledgeable about menopause and who has that expertise. I've got some friends who have paid for menopause expertise, which I know not everybody can do that. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can access, but keep asking the questions, and get the right support in place, and knowing that it's something that you'll go through. It's normal, and that you can build yourself back up, and also, if you can, try and look upon it as a gift, as an opportunity, that this sort of breaking down of confidence of who you are. And it's a willingness, I think, to let go of all the girls and all the women that you once were, to make way for a new woman to step forward. So also just leaning into the fact that it's part of the process, and that you almost have to go into the chrysalis to experience the full metamorphosis, and that you will grow, but you have an opportunity to grow beautiful wings, the size and shape of color that you want them to be. So, unfortunately, I don't think there's a magic wand that you can say, "Oh, all of that stuff is going to go away. You're not going to
Yeah.
experience it." But I almost think it's like it's like stepping into the fire, and it's going to be painful, but within that fire there's an opportunity to forge something really, really new and really beautiful. So it's partly about being brave as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, your first book, The Art of Being, obviously has probably given you, well, you've probably got some of this in the menopause book, because do you have any daily habits or rituals or mindset shifts that have helped you personally? I'm suspecting some of them are from the book. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it was interesting because so when I wrote the book, I had a really strong daily practice of meditation, and I felt extremely connected. And then when I accepted the job with the pharmaceutical company, and I was also single-handedly raising 2 teenage kids at the time, so life was really, really busy and stressful, and it's ironic, isn't it? Because those are exactly the times where you should be doing more meditation and doing more of that stuff, but, you know, like many people, that my those sort of really good habits that I'd gotten into had fallen away to some extent. Um, and actually, it wasn't until I realized that I wasn't myself, that I thought I really need to call on. I've got these tools. I know these tools. I really need to call on them and bring them back into my life. So I started with the classic and the real simple practice of gratitude. And I always think it's like if there's an interview with a supermodel and they say, "You look amazing. What's your secret?" And they say, "Oh, I drink 8 glasses of water a day." And you think, "Oh, that's really boring. That's right." I think gratitude is a bit like that. It's like, "Oh
yeah.
yeah, I've heard that." But actually, the drinking the 8 glasses of water and the having the gratitude practices, they really, really work. So I spend about an hour in the morning before I actually get up, and I'm lucky because I'm quite a morning. I wake up fairly early. I wake up about 6:30, so that gives me time to really sort of feel into my day. I bookend my day with gratitude, so I start my day, just reminding myself about how lucky I am, not even just in terms of possessions or whatever, but just my health and so many things, and nature, and just really checking in with all of that. And then I've become really intentional about my day. So I spend time in the morning really thinking about, who do I want to be today? What am I claiming for myself today? And setting an intention that, for example, I'm gonna try my absolute best to show up with love, whoever I meet. I'm gonna really monitor um, my mood and my mindset and my thoughts, and I'm going to be really strict with myself if negative thoughts do come in, and keep that positivity going, and keep reminding myself, how lucky in many ways that I am. And I'm even intentional in the morning about what I'm going to eat, and I find that's made a big difference. That's another thing about menopause, is the weight gain, and it suddenly becomes really hard to shift some of that weight.
Yeah.
So I now in the morning say, okay, here's what I'm going to eat today, and just spending that little bit of time in the morning being really intentional. And sometimes I will do a 10-minute meditation, and I'll connect with the quantum field, and I feel the infinite power of that. But sometimes I don't. Every morning I go for a walk. I mean, I've got a dog, so I have to anyway, but that is, even if I didn't have a dog, I would, my morning walk and connecting with nature. And I love just the practice of, I try and, like, rather than walking along and saying, "Oh, there's a tree and there's this bird," and you know what everything is. Just trying to look at everything with a completely open mind, and not calling it a tree, or not calling it leaves on the ground, or just almost like being in awe of everything around you. It's practices like those that I do on a daily basis that I have found have really helped shift things. And actually, since the start of this year, I didn't set any New Year's resolutions, or certainly not any traditional ones, but I did decide that I was going to really focus on my happiness and my mood and feeling good and feeling positive. And I just had the best year, and it just keeps getting better and better. And a lot of it is mindset, and I think that is something, and that a lot of
Yeah.
that is in the first book. I think that's something that we can work on and we can cultivate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I love that because I love the whole be do have concept, but particularly the first part that you have to be who you want to be first before you can do the doing and have the having.
Yeah,
So it's so important that we do show up every day and decide who we want to be because we don't have to be who we were yesterday, and
exactly.
we can be a completely different person and make different choices for ourselves. So I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, agree.
So, a quick fire round. What book have you read that made a difference to your life and why?
Oh my goodness. So I I started reading, I suppose, what are classed as self-help books probably about 20, 25 years ago. And the first ones I read were the Abraham Hicks books.
Right.
And I was like, "Wow, what? Wow, you can." And I started to apply some of that. And my whole life I'd wanted to have a horse, and I was like, "Okay." And then I had a horse, and just so many lovely things. A really powerful one for me, again, an absolute classic, was Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. That I must have read that about 10 times, just that kind of sinking into the present moment. And again, some of these things can sometimes sound a bit cliche, but it really is powerful when you're like, hang on, it's this, it's this, it's all here. So that was a really inspirational one for me. Um, there's a book called Return to Love by Marianne Williamson,
Yep.
which I think is really powerful in terms of living a more open-hearted life, which is something that I'm really embracing this year as part of my intentionality. And again, I feel that makes a huge difference. And then a slightly more recent one, but I think it's blooming brilliant and every woman should read it, is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is just such a wonderful reminder of who we are as women, and the fact that we've been so conditioned by society. And actually, if we're brave enough to peel back some of these layers, there is just such a wonderful um, power to women, I think, that we could all do with unleashing.
Yeah, yeah. No, some great books there for well, just generally,
Yeah.
but to completely change your whole way of thinking about life and what you can possibly achieve. What is your superpower?
I I I I honestly think my superpower is being happy. I think I'm really good at being happy, and I think compared to all of my friends and family, many of whom have got a lot more than I do, but I'm the happiest person I know, and I intend to remain that way. And I think, honestly, like, that's quite a good superpower, isn't it?
It
I
is,
mean, because
yeah,
you could be invisible, or you could fly, or you could do all these things, but if you're not happy, what's the point in having
yeah,
a superpower?
yeah, yeah.
So, I think, yeah, it's quite simple and maybe not particularly, spectacular, but actually it is.
Well, it is. It's life changing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, I really like that. And I only stalk people that have got happiness as superpower.
excellent.
You've mentioned that this year has started off really, really well for you. Is there something extra special you want to achieve by the end of 2025?
Gosh, I mean, in terms of personal stuff, I I've I've achieved so much recently. I'm extremely lucky that I have a fantastic romantic relationship. We got engaged fairly recently, second time around for both of us. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So we'll probably get married next year, and I'm planning the full kind of Greek Mamma Mia wedding. We're going all in. I live in a beautiful place. I've got a stunning little cottage in the middle of the New Forest. I've got wonderful friends. I've got so many lovely things. So I feel really fulfilled from that perspective. I think the one thing that's calling me that I think I might like to do is actually to start a menopause circle for women. Maybe just start something online quite small, but I still feel there's like an opportunity to talk more and for women to get together and exchange stories and to inspire each other and who knows where that could go. I think potentially some of these really small circles really do have the opportunity to change the world. So I think that's something that's sort of there that I need to activate. It's an idea that I need to really kind of bring it forth now and make it happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea, because it is around those safe spaces where women feel more comfortable to open up and share what they're feeling and what they're going through and get the support that they need. So I think that's a really lovely idea. What would be your advice to a younger Jacqui?
Um, I think pretty much everything that's in the sort of the Baz Luhrmann song, sunscreen. Yeah, wear more
Yeah.
sunscreen. You're not as fat as you think you are. All of these things, and also, I think the main one. I mean, I was quite a stress head when I was younger, and I worried about a lot of things. So I think I'd just say it's okay. It's all going to be okay. You actually can't get it wrong. Even when you're getting it wrong, you're getting it right. Relax. It's all going to be okay. I think would probably be the advice I would share.
Yeah, yeah, very wise advice. So where can we connect with you? Because people don't want to go down the route I went down to try and find you. Where can we buy the book?
Well, the book's available for free on my website.
Okay,
So if anybody wants the book, just go to my website. It's themagicalthird.com. And it's an ebook, so I'm very happy just to send that to whoever wants the book. It's there. Social media, I'm not really on much social media apart from Threads. I have an Instagram page, but I don't really do an awful lot with it. I'm quite active on Threads because I'm more of a kind of words person than a picture person, and I find Threads is actually a really good place. So I'm at being Jacqui on Threads. Yeah, or go to the website themagicalthird.com.
brilliant. Well, thank you really very much, Jacqui, for joining me today in the Make It Happen studio. And I really think you've shared a lot of wise information for women that are going through menopause or going through the perimenopause. And to know that they aren't alone in it, that, there are other women that are going through similar things. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and it's been so nice to connect with you, Ali.
I really hope you enjoyed this latest recording of the Make It Happen series, and I'd love you to subscribe to our podcast channel, or if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, just click the subscribe button. We'd love you to continue hearing and seeing more of our Make It Happen interviews. If you're not a member of Costa Women yet, but you're a woman who is living in Spain or a woman who is thinking about moving to Spain, do come and join us at costawomen.com. It's completely free to join. In the meantime, I look forward to sharing more Make It Happen interviews with you. Bye for now.